Hey warriors, welcome back to the channel. You ever notice how the stupidest people in the room drain the most energy? How you spend more time explaining obvious things to incompetent people than actually doing meaningful work? How fools somehow always have the confidence to question your expertise while demonstrating none of their own. And the worst part, you keep engaging with them. You keep trying to make them understand. You keep explaining, correcting, proving you're right, as if logic and reason will suddenly work on people who've never operated with either. And here's what you haven't realized. They don't respect your intelligence, they resent it. Every time you're right and they're wrong, every time you see solutions they can't comprehend, every time you try to help them understand something obvious, you think you're being helpful. But what's actually happening? You're making them feel inferior, and they hate you for it. So they undermine you, they question you, they ignore your input until someone dumber suggests the same thing. They create problems you have to solve while taking credit you'll never receive. And you keep trying to reason with them, explain to them, educate them, as if their stupidity is an information problem instead of a permanent condition. Here's the brutal truth. Arguing with a fool proves there are two. The moment you engage stupidity on its terms, the moment you waste your intelligence trying to educate the ineducable, you've already lost. You've let them drag you down to their level where they have home field advantage. And while you're burning out from frustration, wasting time in pointless debates, and watching incompetence get rewarded, they're comfortable. Because this is their world. They've been operating here their entire lives. If you're ready to stop wasting your intelligence trying to educate idiots and start strategically managing them instead, subscribe now, because what comes next is the classification system that lets you identify fool types instantly and deploy the right strategy for each. Machiavelli understood what destroys most intelligent people. Fools are not a problem to solve, they're terrain to navigate. You don't fix them, you don't educate them, you don't waste a single second trying to make them smarter. You manage them, strategically, efficiently, without emotion, without ego, without ever letting them know they're being managed. Stay till the end, because I'm about to show you the Machiavellian framework for handling fools, not by debating them, not by educating them, but by manipulating outcomes around them so efficiently they never realize they're being played. Let me show you exactly what's been happening. You're in a meeting. Someone proposes a terrible idea. You immediately see the flaws, the assumptions that don't hold, the consequences they haven't considered, the entire logical structure that collapses under basic scrutiny. And what do? You explain, carefully, clearly. You lay out exactly why the idea won't work. You provide alternatives. You think you're being helpful. You think you're contributing value. And what actually happens? They get defensive. They double down on the stupid idea. They take your critique personally. They make you the problem instead of addressing the actual problem. And suddenly, you're not the intelligent person who saw the flaw. You're the difficult person who always has to be negative, who shoots down ideas, who can't just be supportive. And the terrible idea, it moves forward anyway. Either because they're too stupid to understand your objection, or because their ego won't let them admit you're right. Now you're stuck. Stuck watching a preventable disaster unfold. Stuck knowing you'll probably have to fix it later. Stuck being right in a way that makes everyone resent you. And you're wondering, what did I do wrong? How could I have explained it better? Maybe if I'd been more diplomatic, more patient, more careful with their feelings, maybe then they would have listened. Wrong. The problem isn't how you explained it. The problem is that you explained it at all. Because here's what you're missing. Fools don't operate on logic, they operate on ego. And when you use logic to dismantle their position, you're not just attacking their idea, you're attacking their identity, you're making them feel stupid. And people will defend their ego with far more ferocity than they'll defend the truth. Always. This is the first lesson. Stop trying to educate fools. It doesn't work. It's never worked. It will never work. because stupidity isn't an information deficit that more information can fix. Stupidity is a cognitive ceiling. It's an inability to process complexity, to think systemically, to see second-order consequences, and no amount of patient explanation changes someone's processing capacity. You can't explain someone into being smarter. You can only exhaust yourself trying. Machiavelli wrote, "Men are so simple and so subject to present necessities that he who seeks to deceive will always find someone who will allow himself to be deceived." Translation: people operate on emotion and immediate gratification, not logic and long-term thinking. And if you approach them with logic, you're speaking a language they don't understand. You're trying to reason with someone who's not equipped for reason, and they will make you pay for highlighting that gap. So what's the alternative? What do you do when you're surrounded by fools who have power, who make decisions that affect you, who create problems you have to live with? You stop engaging with their intellect because they don't have any, and you start engaging with what they do have: ego, emotion, and self-interest. You stop trying to make them see reason. You start manipulating outcomes. You stop being right in ways that threaten them. You start being strategic in ways that serve you. Let me show you the framework. The Machiavellian system for handling fools without wasting your intelligence, without compromising your outcomes, and without ever letting them know they're being managed. First, you need to understand that not all fools are the same. Different types of stupidity require different strategies. And the biggest mistake intelligent people make is treating all fools identically, usually by trying to educate them. But fools fall into distinct categories, and each category has specific vulnerabilities you can exploit. Fool type 1, the confident idiot. This is the person who speaks with absolute certainty about things they fundamentally don't understand. They're not just wrong, they're confident in their wrongness. They've mistaken their inability to see complexity for clarity. They think because something seems simple to them, it is simple. And they're dangerous because their confidence is contagious to other fools. How do you handle them? Never argue facts. Never try to educate them. Never explain why they're wrong, because their confidence isn't based on knowledge, it's based on ego, and attacking their position attacks their ego, which makes them defensive and more entrenched. Instead, you redirect. You ask questions that expose the flaws in their thinking without you having to point them out. Interesting. What happens if X changes? How does that account for Y? What's the backup plan if that assumption doesn't hold? You're not correcting them. You're making them correct themselves, or more likely, making them reveal to everyone else that they haven't thought it through. You stay neutral. You stay curious. You let their own stupidity do the work. And when the idea inevitably fails, you're not the one who said it wouldn't work. You're the one who asked the thoughtful questions that nobody else considered. You've protected your reputation while letting their incompetence speak for itself. Fool type 2, the emotional reactor. This is the person who can't separate their feelings from reality. Everything is personal. Every critique is an attack. Every disagreement is a conflict. They operate entirely on emotion, and they expect everyone else to manage their feelings for them. And they're dangerous because they create drama that wastes everyone's time and energy. How do you handle them? Never engage emotionally. The moment you match their emotional energy, you've lost. You've entered their domain, where reason doesn't exist, and the loudest person wins. Instead, you stay relentlessly calm, borderline robotic. You treat their emotional explosions like weather. You acknowledge it's happening, but you don't take it personally, and you don't try to stop it. I understand you're upset. Let me know when you're ready to discuss solutions. Then you disengage until they calm down. You're not being cold, you're being strategic. Because emotional reactors feed on emotional engagement. They want you to get upset, to defend yourself, to engage in the drama. And when you refuse, when you stay calm while they're losing it, they look unhinged, and you look professional. You've made their emotional instability visible without saying a word about it. And over time people learn, this person can't be manipulated through emotion, and that makes you powerful. Fool type 3, the credit thief. This is the person who contributes nothing, but takes credit for everything. They're not necessarily stupid, they're strategically parasitic. They know they can't generate value, so they position themselves to claim value others generate. And they're dangerous because they're often good at politics, at managing up, at looking productive without being productive. How do you handle them? Document everything, create paper trails, send emails, summarizing conversations, CC relevant people on decisions, make your contributions visible to people who matter, not just to the credit thief, and never ever rely on them acknowledging your work. They won't. But when you've documented everything, when there's a clear record of who did what, their theft becomes obvious to anyone paying attention. And here's the advanced move. You let them take credit for small things while you take ownership of outcomes. They can claim they came up with the idea or contributed to the project. Meanwhile, you're the one who actually delivered results, and results speak louder than claims. Over time, people notice, this person always takes credit, but that person always delivers. And when it's time for real responsibility, for important projects, for promotions, who do you think they give it to? Not the credit thief. The person who produces. Fool type 4, the willfully ignorant. This is the person who could understand, but chooses not to. They don't want to know. They don't want to think. They want someone else to do the thinking for them, and they'll resist any information that requires them to change, adapt, or put in effort. And they're dangerous because they create inertia. They're the "we've always done it this way" people who block progress. How do you handle them? You root around them. You don't try to convince them. You don't waste energy trying to make them see why change is necessary. You just build the change without them. You create proof of concept. You demonstrate results. You make the new way so obviously better that continuing the old way becomes indefensible. And when it works, when the results speak for themselves, they'll either adapt or become obviously obsolete. Either way, you win. The key is this: you're not asking for permission. You're not building consensus. You're not trying to bring them along. You're doing what works, proving it works, and letting their continued resistance make them look like the obstacle they are. You've removed them from the equation without ever confronting them directly. These are the 4 main types. And notice the pattern. You never argue. You never educate. You never try to make them smarter. You strategically manage outcomes around their stupidity. You use their own weaknesses against them. You let their incompetence be self-evident while positioning yourself as calm, professional, and effective. This is Machiavellian fool management. This is how intelligent people operate when they're not wasting their intelligence trying to fix the unfixable. Now let me show you the mindset shift that makes all of this possible. Because the techniques are useless if you're still emotionally invested in making fools understand. The techniques only work when you've accepted a fundamental truth that most intelligent people resist. Fools are a permanent feature of the landscape. They're not going away. They're not getting smarter. They're not going to suddenly start thinking critically. And your job is not to fix that. Your job is to achieve your goals despite that. This is the shift from seeing fools as problems to seeing them as terrain. You don't get angry at a mountain for being in your way. You root around it, you climb over it, you build a tunnel through it. But you don't waste energy wishing the mountain wasn't there. It is there. It will always be there. And your effectiveness is measured by how well you navigate the terrain, not by how successfully you reshape it. Same with fools. They exist. They'll always exist, and they'll often have power, position, and influence. Your boss might be one, your colleague might be one, your client might be one, and your effectiveness, your ability to get things done, to advance your career, to achieve your goals, depends on your ability to work with, around, and through fools without ever compromising your own intelligence or emotional state. Machiavelli understood this. He wrote, The wise man does at once what the fool does finally. And what he meant was, intelligent people see consequences before they happen and act accordingly. Fools have to experience the consequences before they learn, if they learn at all. Your advantage isn't in making fools see what you see. Your advantage is in acting on what you see while they're still blind. You don't wait for them to understand, you execute. And when the consequences you predicted show up, you're already positioned to benefit from being right. If this is shifting how you see fools from problems to manage to terrain to navigate, hit that like button. It tells me this mindset is landing, and it pushes this to others who are still wasting their intelligence trying to educate idiots. Now let's talk about the emotional discipline this requires, because the hardest part of handling fools isn't the strategy, it's the emotional control. It's resisting the compulsion to correct them, to educate them, to make them see. That compulsion is an ego trap, and it's destroying your effectiveness. Here's what's happening psychologically. When a fool says something stupid, your brain recognizes the error immediately. You see the flaw in their logic, you see the consequence they're missing, you see the better solution, and you feel a compulsion to share this, to correct the error, to inject intelligence into the conversation. And this compulsion feels righteous. It feels like you're being helpful, like you're contributing value, like you're doing what intelligent people are supposed to do. But that compulsion isn't about helping, it's about ego. It's about needing to be recognized as intelligent. It's about needing to be right. It's about needing others to acknowledge that you see what they don't. And that need, that compulsion to correct, is making you predictable. It's making you manipulatable. It's making you waste your intelligence on people who will never appreciate it. Because every time you correct a fool, here's what actually happens. You make them feel stupid. You threaten their ego. You create resentment. And they remember that you made them feel inferior. And they'll find ways to undermine you, to question you, to diminish you. Not consciously, not strategically, but instinctively. Because you've made yourself a threat to their self-image, and people protect their self-image with far more energy than they protect anything else. So you need to kill the compulsion. You need to develop the discipline to see stupidity, recognize it, and not react. You need to be able to sit in a meeting where someone says something monumentally idiotic, and instead of correcting them, you just let it hang there. You let the room sit with it. You let others respond. You conserve your intelligence for moments when it actually matters. And here's what's beautiful about this. When you stop being the person who always corrects everyone, when you stop being the one who can't let anything slide, when you develop the reputation of someone who only speaks when it matters, your words carry more weight. Because they're rare, because they're strategic, because people know that when you finally do say something, it's worth paying attention to. Compare that to the person who corrects everything, who can't let a single error pass, who has to demonstrate their intelligence in every conversation. People stop listening to that person. They tune them out. They roll their eyes. They've learned that this person just likes to hear themselves talk, likes to show off, likes to make others feel stupid. And even when that person is right, even when they're providing value, it doesn't land. Because they've burned through their credibility by being predictably pedantic. This is the discipline, strategic silence, letting fools be wrong, letting incompetence reveal itself, letting mistakes happen when they don't affect your core interests, and only deploying your intelligence when it serves your goals, not when it serves your ego. And here's the advanced version of this. Sometimes you let fools be right, even when they're wrong. Because correcting them costs you more than their mistake costs you. Let me give you an example. You're in a meeting. Someone proposes a plan that you can see has a flaw. The flaw isn't fatal, it's just inefficient. If they execute the plan as proposed, they'll waste some time and resources, but they'll eventually figure it out and course correct. The cost of the flaw is minor. But if you point out the flaw, here's what happens. You make them defensive. You create friction. You slow down the meeting. You become the obstacle. And even if they eventually agree with you, they resent you for making them look bad. The cost of correcting them exceeds the cost of the original flaw. So what do? You say nothing. You let them execute the flawed plan. You let them discover the flaw themselves. And when they do, when they come back frustrated that it didn't work perfectly, you don't say, "I told you so." You say, "Yeah, I noticed that too. Here's how to fix it." Now you're not the person who shot down their idea. You're the person who helped them salvage it. Same outcome, problem gets fixed, but you've spent zero political capital and actually gained some by being helpful when they needed it. This is the difference between being right and being effective. Being right is about ego. Being effective is about outcomes. And Machiavelli was only ever interested in outcomes. He didn't care if the prince was the smartest person in the room. He cared if the prince was the most powerful, and power comes from strategic thinking, not from demonstrating intelligence. Now let me show you the ultimate technique for handling fools when you can't avoid them, can't root around them, and actually need something from them. This is the manipulation layer. This is where you speak their language to get what you want while they remain completely unaware they're being played. Remember, fools don't operate on logic. They operate on ego, emotion, and self-interest. So when you need a fool to do something, you don't make a logical argument. You make an emotional appeal. You frame it in terms of their self-interest. You make them think it's their idea. Watch. You need approval for a project. Your boss is a fool. If you present it logically, here's the problem, here's the solution, here's why this works, they'll find reasons to say no, because they don't understand the logic, and admitting they don't understand makes them feel stupid, so they'll say no to protect their ego. Instead, you present it emotionally. I've been thinking about what you said last week about, and it got me thinking, what if we tried? I think it could really address the concerns you raised. You've just done 3 things. You've made them feel heard. You've made them feel smart by connecting your idea to their concern, and you've made it feel like they're part of the solution. They're not evaluating the idea on merit. They're evaluating how it makes them feel, and it makes them feel good. So they say yes. Same idea, same outcome. But you've routed around their stupidity by speaking the language they understand, emotion and ego. You haven't wasted time trying to make them understand the logical argument. You've just made them feel good about approving it. And they'll walk away thinking it was their idea, or at least that they were instrumental in it. Which is fine. Let them have the ego boost. You got what you needed. This is the manipulation framework. Identify what the fool values, usually ego, status or security, and frame your request in those terms. You're not lying. You're translating. You're presenting the same reality through a lens they can process, and because they're processing through emotion instead of logic, they're much easier to influence, because emotion is predictable. Logic can be debated, but if you make someone feel good, feel smart, feel important, they'll give you what you want, just to maintain that feeling. Machiavelli wrote, "Never attempt to win by force what can be won by deception." And this is what he meant. You don't force fools to understand your logic. You deceive them into thinking your idea serves their interests. You manipulate the frame, and they comply willingly because they think they're getting what they want, when really, you're getting what you want. They just don't have the cognitive capacity to see the difference. This is how intelligent people operate in fool-dense environments. They don't rage at incompetence. They don't waste energy on education. They don't compromise their own goals. Because fools exist, they strategically manipulate outcomes. They speak the language of emotion and ego when logic won't work. They let fools take credit for small things while they take ownership of results. They document their contributions. They route around obstacles. They stay calm while others react, and they achieve their goals despite being surrounded by incompetence. This is the Machiavellian way. Not fair, not kind, not educational, just effective. because effectiveness is the only measure that matters. And if you're still trying to be the smartest person in the room by correcting everyone, you've confused being right with being powerful. Machiavelli never made that mistake. He knew that the wise man in the fool's court doesn't lecture the fool on wisdom. He uses the fool's stupidity to advance his own position, and the fool never realizes what happened. Now let's talk about the final piece, protecting yourself from fool-induced damage. Because some fools aren't just incompetent, they're dangerous. They make decisions that affect you. They create problems you have to solve. They have power they shouldn't have, and if you don't protect yourself, their stupidity becomes your crisis. The first layer of protection is documentation. Everything in writing, every decision, every conversation, every instruction they give you that you know is wrong. You document it, not confrontationally, just factually. Per our conversation on, you've asked me to proceed with, I want to confirm I've understood correctly before moving forward. Email, paper trail, timestamp. So when it blows up, and it will blow up, you have proof that you followed their instructions, not your judgment. You're not taking the fall for their incompetence. The second layer is managing up. If your boss is a fool, your survival depends on making sure their boss knows what you're actually doing, not in an obvious brown-nosing way, just in a factual, professional way. You copy them on key updates. You make your contributions visible. You ensure that when things go well, it's clear who drove the success, and when things go badly, it's clear who made the decisions that led there. You're building a second opinion of your competence that isn't filtered through the fool above you. The third layer is exit planning. Never get trapped in a fool-dependent situation. Always have options. Always be building skills, relationships and opportunities outside of your current context, because sometimes the fool has enough power that you can't outmaneuver them. Sometimes the only winning move is to leave, and you can only make that move if you've prepared for it. If you've built your value elsewhere, if you're not dependent on the fool's approval for your survival. This is the fool framework. Classification. Know what type of fool you're dealing with. Strategy. Deploy the right technique for that fool type. Emotional discipline. Resist the compulsion to correct or educate. Manipulation. Speak their language of ego and emotion. Protection. Document, manage up, and maintain exit options. This is how intelligent people handle fools without wasting their intelligence, without compromising their goals, and without burning out from frustration. If you're ready to stop arguing with fools and start outmaneuvering them, subscribe and turn on notifications. This channel is for people who understand that intelligence without strategy is just wasted energy. Drop a comment telling me which fool type you're dealing with right now. Share this with someone who's still trying to educate idiots and burning out in the process. Because the world is divided into two groups: people who waste their intelligence arguing with fools, and people who conserve their intelligence by strategically managing them. And you just joined the second group. The moment you internalize this, the moment you stop seeing fools as people to fix and start seeing them as terrain to navigate, everything changes. You stop getting frustrated. You stop wasting energy. You stop taking their stupidity personally. You just see it, categorize it, and deploy the appropriate strategy, like a chess player seeing the board, like a general reading terrain, like Machiavelli advising the prince. And here's what happens over time. You develop a reputation, not as the smartest person in the room, that's the trap, but as the most effective person in the room, the person who gets things done, the person who doesn't get rattled, the person who somehow navigates organizational politics without getting burned, the person who works with difficult people without becoming difficult themselves. And that reputation, that's power, real power, the kind Machiavelli wrote about, the kind that doesn't depend on being loved or feared or respected, the kind that just is, because you deliver results, and results speak louder than intelligence ever could. This is the path. Stop proving you're smart. Start proving you're effective. Stop educating fools. Start managing outcomes. Stop getting emotional. Start getting strategic. And watch how quickly you separate from the pack. Because most intelligent people never figure this out. They spend their entire careers frustrated, burning out, wondering why their intelligence isn't translating into success. And the answer is simple. They're playing the wrong game. They're trying to win by being right. But Machiavelli knew, you don't win by being right. You win by being strategic. And strategy means working with reality as it is, fools included, not as you wish it would be. Welcome to reality. It's full of fools, and now you know how to handle them.